In Between Fantasy Football Podcast, Season 4. Let's go, baby. Yeah. There was a time I had trouble talking about it. Congratulate them, we know they doubted. Somehow we made it up out the pit, back against the wall. Never quit, traversing through each obstacle. Show a non-believer what's possible. Let nothing they could do stand in between me and my wildest dreams. Let's go. And that come at us could come in between. Life gave me the worst, yet my side grew so green. We've been down in the dirt, been tossed in the trash, but I never stray from my path. When we're gone, we ain't looking back.
Maybe we were all way too high. Maybe that's our fault.
It's going to be a crazy time, but it's going to be a fun time.
Life is boring if you don't take some chances and do some things outside of the box.
Your destination for both some feel-good lifestyle advice and some fantasy football advice. All right. It is October 11th, 2022. Hope was restored to many, but not all fantasy managers, as Week 5 gave us such an incredible slate of football. Seth Woolcock back here with you, and tonight I am joined by who some call the Michelle and Barack Obama of the fantasy football industry, Jen and Nate Polvote. How are you guys doing on this lovely Tuesday evening?
I think I can speak for both of us and say it's been a long week. Jackson, our 5-year-old, put it in the best way. His legs were too tired from his really busy, long day. I can say the same, and I'm glad to be sitting down with everybody tonight.
It's good to have you back here, Jen. Good to see your face tonight. I'm sure Jackson's enjoying his sleep. But Nate, how are you doing this fine night?
I'm great, man. It's a little windy. I don't care for that. And I had to carry Jackson around because his legs were so tired. So my arms are now tired. I could be standing, but I still have to use these things for the next hour. But I'm good. I'm stoked to be here.
Well, I'm glad to have you guys here. Tonight on the show, we have a very exciting one front and center. We're going to talk about all the injury news. What's up with Davante Adams? How are we going to counter that if a suspension is looming for him? And then we also have, of course, headline hijinks. We're going to kind of break down our winners, our losers of the fantasy football slate Week 5. And then we're going to do some in the scope. We're going to talk some short-sighted mainstream waiver targets, the people you should be putting in claims tonight on Tuesday, or if you're listening to the show on Wednesday or just with us on Tuesday and want to get some guys off the waiver wire the next day for free, off free agency, these are some in the scope targets you can take as well. So we're going to give you all that tonight, guys. I'm super thankful for everyone being here in the chat. We got Troy Olson. Can't wait for the show. He was here half hour early. Troy was ready to go here at 9 p.m. So we appreciate you sticking around for us, Troy. And then Albert. Hello, IBT family. Hello, Albert. And then we have what's up, IBT family from Brad Bull all the way over there in Australia. What's up, Brad? Great to see so many IBT family members back here, guys.
Yeah, it's always great for the support. Albert has been all over the place for the last 2 weeks. Everywhere I've been, I see Albert in the chat. Albert, thanks for tuning in tonight, man. And Brad, all the way down under, buddy.
Certainly. And guys, we're going to kind of round out the show tonight a little bit later on. We're going to talk about a little bit of a reflection on we just passed 100 episodes not too long ago. We haven't really got a chance to talk about it. So we're going to talk about that here at the end of the show. And we want to learn from you, IBT family members. How can we better serve you? What is that we can be doing better, whether that's something on this podcast, whether that's something else on our website, on our YouTube channel. We want to hear from you guys. So feel free to drop anything now or later in the show and let us know how we can better serve you guys, because that's what our mission is here. You guys know it. We want to help you win fantasy championships. We want to help you win some cash this year. We also want you to have fun doing it and just live an overall better life at the same time as well. So guys, with that all said, let's go ahead and jump into front and center.
Sometimes taking that first step out the door is the hardest thing to do. Give it a chance, you'll be begging for more. Save the spot just for you. We're all somewhere in between. How about you come to the place you can have some fun? Ain't gotta worry about knowing not what it means. You can come and give me another, cause the night is young. At least I so thought.
This just in. Breaking news. Front and center.
front and center here, guys. We're going to talk about all the latest injury news, everything that relates to it, and we got to start with Rashad Penny because that was kind of the big one on Sunday, guys. Super unfortunate to see it, and like I don't ever really want to toss out the label injury prone, but maybe it does fit Rashad Penny. It's been a tough one to start his career. We saw the breakout here finally in 2021. However, he goes down to a fractured tibia on Sunday. And in his place, Kenneth Walker, he ripped off a gainer, looked really good, looked why, reminded the Seahawks and their fans why they spent a second-round pick on him. So, guys, sucks about Rashad Penny. How are we feeling about Kenneth Walker, though? In most of my leagues, he is already rostered, but I know in a lot he's on free agency. So, Nate, how are you feeling about Kenneth Walker, if he is or not on your teams yet?
I don't have a whole lot of shares, and I wish I did. Right now, he's about to go off. This is an offense that supports his type of running style. Rashad Penny was looking really good. This is a Seattle team that I think has things a little bit more figured out than we expected at this point in the season, with Geno Smith playing well. Go after Ken Walker. And shout out Rashad Penny, man. Like, what a broken tibia. Like, we're not talking about a worn down hamstring or recurring Achilles. This is a freak injury. All I hope for is that the surgery goes well and he's able to come back next season on another team. If CMC doesn't end up in Buffalo, I feel like that's a good fit for him. But right now, go get Ken Walker.
Yeah, Jen, are we emptying our fab budgets if we don't have Ken Walker and he's out there right now? Because I don't know if there's going to be a more exciting RB to come around.
Yeah, I mean, for somebody who frequently has issues at running back, hi, Beckett. He's here. As soon as I start talking, of course. Yeah, I mean, he's a great option. He's a great option.
Yeah, I mean, if he's available in your league, spend probably everything you have left on him. There's going to be a player worth doing that the rest of the season, likely.
I completely agree with you guys. Ken Walker, we've known him from Wake Forest before his time at Michigan State. He was great both places. I think he's going to be dynamic on this team. I think you got to unload your clip. And here Brad's asking in the chat, should I spend all 75 of my fab on Walker? Depends how bad you need a running back, Brad, but I wouldn't be opposed to it. Or Albert, apologize. That was Albert in the chat. But I would not be opposed to unloading my fab on him. Let's move forward here. Davante Adams. He might be facing a suspension. We're hearing from Tom Pelissero in the NFL. I mean, what can we say about it, guys? I mean, what happened there after the fact? If you guys didn't see it, Davante Adams basically pushed some type of employee. I don't know if he was a cameraman or something, but he was carrying something in his hand. Pushed him after the game. Kind of a bad loss there on Monday night for the Raiders. They should have pulled that one out, I think. And he might be facing a suspension. And you can't really blame the NFL for wanting to take some type of action here. Sucks if you roster Davante Adams. Like, this is just one of those things. I have him everywhere, and like I just feel like I'm the unluckiest person in the world. But there is a silver lining to this. And one, he should only probably be out about one game, so we don't need to panic if there is a suspension. And then also at the same time, like Matt Collins is still out there in a lot of leagues. And I know he put up a big donut on Monday night, but guys, he was very close to coming down with 2 different touchdowns. Would have had a huge night. I had a couple parlays on him, so I was a little disappointed to see the donut. But Jen, do you think the easiest solution here, if you want to have the handcuff to Davante, is to go out there and grab Matt Collins?
Yeah, like you said, he almost came down with that touchdown there. Looking back, I guess 2 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, Matt Collins had a great game. I mean, it's unfortunate with Davante Adams. It's sad to see because you know that that's innate. And I know that he apologized immediately afterwards, and that's not me and all that stuff. And Tom Pelissero came to a little bit of his defense, saying, hey, if you're an equipment guy, you've got to be, or if you're anybody, you've got to have your head up. You've got to have your head on a swivel is exactly what he said. But for that to be an immediate reaction and for the NFL stance against violence, I mean, you've got to do something about it. But Matt Collins, I think, if given the opportunity and get Davante out of there for a game, I think Mac's going to rise to the occasion and absolutely connect with Derek Carr.
Well, and to what Jen said, I agree. But I think if he performs well again in the absence of Davante Adams, does he earn a permanent role in this offense?
He already has it. He's the guy on 2 wide receiver sets right now. Like
Sure.
Hunter Renfro's not in the game.
Fair enough.
He's playing
Well,
the
and
flank.
Renfro running into Davante Adams on the last play of the game for the Raiders.
That was on Adams too. That was on
It
Adams.
was on both. You know, and to the Adams thing, like, he apologized on Twitter. He could have walked back and told the guy, hey, dude, I'm really sorry. Like, it was reactionary, helped him up. Done anything else other than walking away. And for that, I think he deserves a 1 to 2 game suspension.
And a fine.
Yeah, we'll see what the
Not
NFL
just a Twitter
does.
apology.
Drew Davenport had a very informative Twitter thread earlier today that, like, this guy was doing this just to cut. Like, he went to the hospital to cover his bases. If he is going to press charges in the future, whatever happens, he had to cover his bases there. So we don't have to go out and say, oh, this guy's just looking for a paycheck or something like that too. So let's be, be kind of that, be appropriate about that. But as far as fantasy goes, go out and get, I think he has to be rostered either way. Matt Collins should be on all rosters, in my opinion. I don't, sometimes it's like, why would you handcuff a wide receiver? But I think this is the time to do it, especially. So go out there, get Matt Collins. He's playing on those 2 wide receiver sets as well. Let's move forward here. Damian Harris, he leaves with a hamstring injury. Looks like he's going to miss up to 4 weeks in this one, guys. And it was Ramondre Stevenson, and he looked great. Like, kind of reminded me low-key of Derrick Henry. The way he went out there and performed was bulldozing over people. Nate, you've been really high on Ramondre Stevenson for a while now. So does this boost him up into that mid RB2 tier until Harris returns?
Yes. I think that's his floor.
You think that's his floor?
I think that's his floor. I think his ceiling is a weekly top 10 running back. This is a team that Mac Jones is hurt. Bailey Zappi is a rookie, 4th round pick. And they're going to need to lean more on this run game. Ramondre Stevenson showed he was completely capable of being that guy on Sunday. Most of us knew he was anyway. And funny, you should lay out the Derrick Henry comparison. I may have said that before and gotten slaughtered for it. And he's not Derrick Henry necessarily, but he runs like Derrick Henry. And you've got to go out. If he is available on waivers in your league,
I don't think he is.
There's no way. It's more likely that Kenneth Walker's available. But you're starting him now every week. Yeah,
I mean, when you go 25 for 161, it's impressive. And the last 2 weeks, he's had a very impressive performance as well. 66 yards, 73 yards. And those were on 12 or 13 carries in those games. So now if he's going to about double that, see about 25 carries, he is an auto start here. Still not like we haven't seen it a ton in the passing game. Like he has 13 receptions on the year. So more than I think some were expecting coming into the season. But if he can kind of, be their really 3-down back here, we might see a changing in the tide here. And Damian Harris might not take the starting role job back once he comes back here.
I think that's fairly likely at this point.
Yeah, I agree.
And I almost think like Damian Harris at this point probably is about no value as well. I think like if anyone's
I would trade him for the right amount, but to say I still think he has some value.
It probably some, Nate. You probably maybe that's an over exaggeration, but I am worried that when he comes back, he's not going to have the same role he did as the RB1 in this. Might not have all the goal line work like he did. So I'm concerned about Damian Harris. Ramondre Stevenson, guys, you can fire him up. Going to Carolina, our guy Matt Rhule, he was fired on Monday. Not a surprising one after what we saw from him and the Panthers this season. Baker Mayfield in the making. He also suffered a high ankle sprain. He's going to be out probably about 3 to 4 weeks. Was not placed on IR yet, so there is a chance Baker gets back within the month. But, Jen, what do we make of this Carolina mess? Because it has been absolutely awful. I don't even know what to say anymore, but it almost feels like all value outside of CMC is gone.
Oh, man. I mean, I was high on Baker coming into the season. I mean, I was excited for him to get on a new team. I was excited for his revenge game. I have him rostered in several leagues. And it's just, I mean, DJ Moore can't break out. It just seems like nobody can do anything with him behind center. So this could be somewhat of a blessing in disguise with his injury for the team as a whole. And for somebody needs to light this fire. It's like it's been stoked a little bit, but nothing has happened. It is infuriating to watch these games. It's embarrassing. It's just horrible.
Well, and PJ Walker was kind of a sparky type player in the XFL when I know it's the XFL, but like this guy's looking at the opportunity of a lifetime where he's got 3 to 4 weeks because Sam Darnold is going to be on IR for another 3 to 4 weeks. He apparently is not healing as quickly as expected. I know it's crazy. I wouldn't put money you can't afford to lose on it. But what if PJ Walker and the firing of Matt Rhule spark this offense? What if he does unlock DJ Moore? What if he's a difference maker? What if he helps McCaffrey be more effective? And I know their offensive line is bad, but having a mobile quarterback like that kind of takes that out of the equation at times.
It's definitely an intriguing proposition, Nate. PJ Walker is definitely a good enough quarterback to be there 2 years in a row coming out of the XFL. So it is something to think about. I think we kind of touched on it a couple weeks ago when we said, like, sell CMC for what you can get him, sell DJ Moore for what you can get him. Because, like, these aren't the same players that they were. And, now we're kind of hearing trade rumors a little bit too. We've heard some trade rumors that maybe it's time for the Panthers to sell. And if that's the case, like, I probably would be interested in DJ Moore on another team, maybe CMC on another team. Like, I've heard him rumored to Buffalo, some different things like that. So it's interesting. It's a lot of hypotheticals though. It's a lot of hypotheticals. And I think odds are that this is a tire fire for the rest of the season and that you really can't start DJ Moore going forward. If someone's willing to take him, I will like even if it's a wide receiver 3, running back 3 value you're getting for him, I'm willing to move off DJ Moore in a heartbeat. Obviously, you got to probably hang it up or hang out with CMC, keep him on your roster. But Jen, would you be interested in getting rid of Moore for whatever you can at this point?
Yeah, 1,000%. Got to get rid of him. I mean, especially with potential trade rumors and, like you said, the tire fire, the dumpster fire that unfortunately is the Panthers this year.
Well, and what's concerning is their owner, David Tepper, said today, Baker hasn't gotten a fair shake. We need to just find him a better coach. So they're not looking to move on from Baker Mayfield. So this is more than just the coach. This is an incompetent front office and a poorly built team. You have to sell everybody.
We'll see. We'll see what happens. The trade deadline's so far away that it really, really makes me wonder about that. Albert here in the chat saying fire up Rams defense this week. Absolutely doubling down on that there, Albert. It's tough. We'll see what happens in Carolina. We haven't seen a lot of big name stars like these two get traded during the season. But Jen and I are saying get out. Nate's holding out a little bit of hope for the future here in Carolina. Let's move forward though to Miami. It's a little bit of dangerous waters down there in Miami after a really good start. And Tyreek Hill, he was in a walking boot after this one. Teddy Bridgewater banged up as well. So really tough to have any faith in the Dolphins offense in general. Raheem Mostert seeing more work because of this. So it's a little bit good to see that. But outside of Raheem, I mean, Jalen Waddle's had 2 down weeks now. I mean, how could you not, though, with the rookie coming in as well, Skylar Thompson off the bench? He performed well, given the circumstances, but still not good enough to get the job done. Dolphins are in some tricky water here until Tua comes back. I still have faith they'll get it together when Tua comes back. But for me, the next 2 or 3 weeks, Nate, I'm worried.
Yeah, and you should be. You're looking at Skylar Thompson, and even if it's not Skylar Thompson, it's still Teddy Bridgewater. And without Tua, this offense isn't nearly as dynamic. My bigger concern is that we lose Tua for a larger chunk of the season. And all of a sudden, you've got guys like Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, who you were drafting so high that, if you knew you were going to have Teddy Bridgewater as their quarterback, are you taking these guys as high as you took them in August?
No way.
Absolutely not. Mm-hmm. But that's what could very well be staring down. And I hope, just to be clear, that Tua takes the time he needs to get right and get healthy. His health is more important than our fantasy points. That said, if he misses 6-7 weeks, which is very possible in this scenario because the NFL is walking on eggshells right now. The Dolphins are walking on eggshells right now.
They should be.
And they should be. They absolutely should be. They just absolutely screwed that situation
They bumbled
so
that
bad.
so
They bumbled
bad.
it. But for fantasy purposes, we could really be looking at maybe the entire rest of the season without Tua, and these guys are borderline droppable in 3 weeks.
Easy. Okay. Easy.
I know that's crazy,
No,
but like
okay.
if we're looking,
Okay.
No, not
Okay.
Tyreek Hill.
All right, we're
Not
gonna
Tyreek Hill.
we're gonna pump the brakes on a little bit. First thing I'm gonna say, I expect Tua to be back in by at least week 9. I heard from Deepak Krona, kind of our guy over here that we plug into, that this is a major concussion. It's going to be probably about 4 weeks. That's what the average is. It could be worse, Nate. You could be right. It could linger. But at the end of the day here, I'm expecting Tua to be back pretty soon in the next couple of weeks. I don't think he plays this week, but I'm going to say give it 2 more weeks and maybe we see him. Don't panic. I don't think we need to panic.
No.
Nate, you were sounding the alarms. Nate, you
So
were
no.
You were
I
fire sailing. You were.
I
doing
was
fire
saying that if we
sailing.
start running into a situation, I'm not saying right now, but if we run into a situation where Tua does not come back,
listen.
you're right. Tyreek Hill is not droppable.
Jalen Waddle.
I see
Jalen
that.
Waddle's not droppable either.
Yeah.
No, you're right. Okay.
Come
you're
on.
Right.
Okay.
You're right. You're right.
You
You're
gotta,
right. You're
okay,
right.
we're moving. Kyle,
I went
cut
a
that
little-
out.
They're
That
not
was-
touched.
That was the
They're
worst.
not
That was
quarterback dependent.
that was the worst take I've heard all year. I'm sorry. I'm
No,
clicking.
that's fair.
You need.
I don't know
roasted
what
on
got
that
into
one.
me there. You're right.
I apologize, IBT, for that garbage take. Let's. My advice, just to close this out here, it's going to be a couple bad weeks for Tyreek. It's going to be a bad couple weeks for Jalen Waddle. I think you can maybe get some value out of Raheem Mostert while the quarterback is out and they're not going to throw as much. But in the meantime, just hold them and you'll get better value after a big game if you do want to sell. But let's not do anything crazy here.
Also, thanks for having me. I'll see you guys around.
Hey, man.
I'm probably going to be fired.
If you're a member of this podcast, I'm going to keep you in check. That's what it comes down to. We're about accountability here. You're going to end up on fantasy receipts after that take, Nate. So just be ready for that one, my friend. In other news, guys, bad news for your Denver Broncos. Ronald Darby, he suffers a torn ACL. And I think, though, the big thing to note is we've kind of been afraid to play a lot of receivers against the Broncos because of Darby, matched up with Surtain out there. They're some of the best cornerbacks in the league. I think we can be a little less concerned about that moving forward. Tough to see that for Ronald Darby, very talented corner out there. Hope he gets back. But, yeah, tough loss for your Broncos, guys, but I think we can be more optimistic about wide receivers playing against the Broncos.
Yeah, I mean, everybody loves this Denver defense, but they played some really weak opponents the first 3 weeks that they should have played better against, to be fair. And we've seen them kind of exposed against the Raiders, exposed them, I think. And I think that's fair. Not that they're like a bottom tier defense, but they're not a top tier defense right now. And losing Darby's, that's painful.
Got a question here in the chat, Jen. So would you start Devonta Smith over Waddle this week? Absolutely, I would. How do you feel about this one, Jen? I just don't feel comfortable rolling out Waddle here.
Yeah. Devonta Smith is fire. I mean, he's had one down week, really. Yeah, that's smash and go. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, it's the Cowboys, so it is a better cornerback duo he's facing here. I expect kind of a low-scoring game, but I expect the Eagles to actually have to lean on him a little more. Maybe Trayvon Diggs seeing a little more A.J. Brown out there. So I'm completely okay with firing up Devonta Smith. He has had 3 really good weeks, 2 kind of down weeks, but I think he's going to bounce back here, continue his hot streak here. So, Albert, I would definitely be okay with firing him up.
Mm-hmm.
Let's move forward, though, guys. A couple concussions, just to quickly note. Chris Olave, he got concussed, which pretty ugly play. Just it was kind of a freak thing. At least he didn't get hit into it. Kind of just fell awkwardly after a catch. Got rolled a touchdown, so he did get something from him in that game. But hopefully Chris Olave gets back out there soon because the Saints are going to need him. And then Pat Freiermuth is probably the more concerning one here, folks. 3rd concussion in his young NFL career. I am a little bit worried about that. Didn't really have a big issue with this at Penn State, so hoping he does bounce back. But not what you want to see from Pat Fryermuth from a dynasty perspective. I'm a little bit concerned, guys. 3 in your first 2 seasons is not great.
Yeah,
Well,
3 in 12 months. I mean, this is not good. Nate and I talked about it a couple days ago that this could be career ending. I mean, now you're talking about prolonged effects from this concussion from 3 in 12 months. So it's really, really concerning. And from a personal standpoint, as a player, you look at him and you feel for him. And as a fantasy manager, you're looking at potentially the end of the line. You've got to get out there and find somebody else to fill that hole.
So you guys are concerned. Nate, you're concerned as well?
A smart, independent neurologist would tell him to retire. If he gets another concussion over the next 3 to 4 months, at any point this season, it could be permanent brain damage.
He could die.
He could die.
Yeah.
This isn't something to mess around with, and we know the science behind it now. Pat Fryermuth, the smart thing for his health would be to retire. And that sucks because this is a guy at the beginning of his career, budding NFL career. The guy could be a star. But he could also die in December if somebody targets his head, because we see that happen every week.
So I'm definitely not like a neurologist or know a lot about it. The one thing I have been told, though, is that like regardless if he does come back, it's probably not going to be a 1 week thing, because the more often you have concussions, the harder it is to come back more frequently. So I don't really want to speculate whether this is career ending or whether you'll miss the rest of the season. I will say, though, that I'm not expecting Pat Fryermuth back here in week 6. So you need to make other arrangements. Yep. If you have an IR slot, I think you need to stash him. If not, I think you can cut him if you need a tight end. It's brutal out there, guys. Like every year, I think people say, oh, the tight end landscape is super brutal. I've always not thought it was too brutal until this year. This is the worst year I've ever seen the tight end landscape, pretty much, unless you had Travis Kelce, who's out there catching 4 tutties a week, and Mark Andrews. Like, you're desperate. You're desperate. And Pat Fryermuth was arguably the most consistent tight end outside of those two. So this is awful for the landscape. It's awful for Fryermuth. You have to be out there making moves. And we're going to talk about some of those moves here a little bit later on, but names like Taysom Hill, you need to really consider. Names like Hayden Hurst that Nate threw out last week on you, you need to consider these guys. Like, they're not sexy names, they're not sexy players, but at the end of the day, you have to score points here in your tight end spot. And even players like, Darren Waller, guys, what happened on Sunday night? Or Monday night, that was just, it sucks. He played 6 snaps and he went out for the game, like burned people to 0. So these streaks, this just sucks.
It's getting ugly. This feels like one of the most injury-riddled first 5 weeks of an NFL season I can remember. And not just like small injuries, like losing guys for the entire season, ACL tears, Achilles tears, broken legs. Like Jen, can you remember?
I think the last 2 years.
Yeah, I think it's every.
Yeah,
I think that every season has this. We can spend an hour talking about the fact that star players are not playing, preseason games, and then they just walk out on the field like they're gonna not get injured. So I think this is very typical, where we see all of these dominoes fall in the first 5 to 6 weeks at the most of the season, and we're all scrambling. Like CMC, how long does he make it every year?
Fair point.
I agree, Jen. I'm with you a little more. I think we've seen this before, but I think the landscape of tight end, it's more concerning than ever. There's just not enough. Like, even the players like Schultz and Kittle and Waller that you drafted in the 4th, 5th round, they're not hitting. There's not a lot of great. There's no great like tight end gold mine that you hit late at drafts either. Like David Njoku's been okay. Tyler Higbee's been serviceable, but it's been rough. But guys, we are going to look on the bright side because it's going to get better. So we're going to go into headline hijinks. We're going to talk about the winners and the losers of week 5 and have a little bit of fun with it as well. So let's go ahead and jump into that. All right. And before we jump in here, we do have a question here from a new face in the chat, Dylan Varnell. What's up, Dylan? Appreciate you joining us tonight. He said, would you be trading Debo or AJ Brown? Would you be trading for Debo or AJ Brown? Brown has a better QB and schedule. Debo has a higher floor. Full PPR league here, guys. Basically, he wants to know who should we be going after, AJ Brown or Debo? I don't think coming into the season I would have said this, but like I've been impressed with AJ Brown. I like AJ Brown, I think, a little better than Debo, but at the same time, I think you can get similar production from Devonta Smith. So I think Debo's does have a little bit higher of floor. Jen, how do you feel on this one for Dylan?
My first instinct was AJ Brown. Debo, I don't know, the emotions surrounding him and everything that went down in the offseason is just kind of gross to me. And I think AJ Brown has the better upside.
Is that because he plays in the better offense, would you say as well?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I'm the last person to tout anything on that offense. So for me to put myself out there and say AJ Brown is a big move.
Nate?
I'm on the Debo side here because we saw what he did with Jimmy Garoppolo last season, and the San Francisco offense will get back to that once Jimmy G gets a little bit more comfortable.
If he stays healthy.
If he stays healthy.
I guess what I would say neither. I would say these are probably players I'm not targeting in general right now. I think Debo has that safe floor, so if you can do a 2-for-1 for him and go after him, that's fine. AJ Brown I like I said, but at the same time, it's tough for me to pay for him when I get Devonta Smith for a lot less. I was sending out some like trades earlier today for Devonta Smith, and I wasn't overpaying, and the owner was really considering it. So, yeah, I think maybe there's some better targets at the wide receiver position for you, Dylan. Maybe try buying someone who's a little bit down, but is in that same range. Would be my recommendation. So, guys, let's go ahead and talk Week 5 headlines, winners and losers here, and what we can take away from it. Let's go ahead, Nate. Why don't you kick us off here, my friend?
So I'm going to go with my loser first, and it's the Rams' offensive disappearing act continues. You guys, this offense I cannot believe how anemic it is. So many of us were high on Allen Robinson coming into the season. A lot of people, not myself, were high on Cam Akers coming into the season. Matthew Stafford was, in most cases, one of the first 5 to 7 quarterbacks off the board in redraft 1 quarterback leagues. Matthew Stafford's quarterback 23 on the season. This Rams team looks like a shell of who they were. The only viable part of this offense right now is Cooper Kupp, which somehow is defying all odds and is a PPR wide receiver 1, even though the rest of this offense has been inept. Is it going to get better? I certainly hope so. Like, you invested heavily in Stafford, and at this point, there are quarterbacks I'm starting over him most weeks.
Stafford, if I had him in any leagues, he's on the waiver wire for me. I think in a 1 QB league, you can move forward without him. But I agree with you here, Nate. The Rams, they've looked anemic. Maybe it's a bounce back game for them here in Week 6. They got the Carolina Panthers, so if there's ever a get right game, it's that. But then they go into the bye, and then they come out, and here's their schedule after it. They have 49ers and Rams, Buccaneers. So not great schedule for them coming out. So, I mean, if you have any of these other guys on your roster, like if you go into your bye and you can't get anything for him, you can drop Allen Robinson. He's droppable. Ben Skoranek, I highlighted him a couple weeks ago. I think he's a nice story, but he shouldn't be on rosters at this point either. Darrell Henderson's getting to that point too, and Cam Akers, squeeze any life you can out of these Rams and get out of them while you can. I just don't think this is a thing that can fix itself. Like, they can maybe put a Band-Aid here on it in Week 6 against the Carolina Panthers, Jen, but I'm out on the Rams.
Dude, it's like if there ever was a story of winning a Super Bowl and then coming back and being nothing, this would be the Super Bowl champ of that. But yeah, Cooper Kupp, he's the only viable starter. Allen Robinson, he's got $15.5 million a year to do nothing. I mean, I keep saying if you get him the ball, but it's just not happening. And I've got one share of Stafford left, and I got to get rid of it. It's just, this is awful.
When you lose by 12 to Cooper Rush and the Cowboys at home in SoFi, that's when I hit the panic button.
Yep.
You are favorited at home. The Cowboys, yeah, they have a great record, but their offense isn't great, and you can score 10 points. Don't get me wrong, Dallas has a blazing defense. Micah Parsons is the man. But at the same time, you're a defending Super Bowl champ, and you can't go out there and get anything going offensively for 60 minutes. So
Yep.
I think it's time to hit the I would say wait until after this week and then hit the eject button. Wait till they play the Panthers, see if it will kick up any value on Robinson, any value on Akers, and then get the hell out of there before the bye.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Jen, do you want to keep? Well, let's just go through the losers here so we can quickly try to bring back some good vibes after it.
Okay, so my loser is get out of line for that ride. Russ whiffs. If you look at his stats on paper, they actually don't look bad. When you initially see it, he threw for 274 yards. He had 4 carries for 22 yards, 1 rushing touchdown. But those 2 interceptions just, God, wiped everything out if you had him. If you were in the positive, it wasn't by much, but most fantasy managers landed there in the negative. He's doing all the work himself. It sucks. There were a lot of drop balls. There were a lot of missed catches. And until there is probably a coaching change, I don't see that the Broncos and Russell Wilson can move forward with dynamic weapons like Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy and Mike Boone coming up. I mean, he has no help, and it sucks. So until Russ either takes over the offense or the Broncos get a new head coach, I just don't see that he's a starter every week anymore.
No, I completely agree with you, Jen, 100%. And now he has the shoulder injury as well, which is something to know. Like, he's probably going to play through it. Dak took some time off for last year for this, at least a game. So he probably should. He won't because he's Russell Wilson and he thinks he's Mr. Unlimited. But at the end of the day, the fundamentals are not there for this team. And you can't start Russ. And if you want to drop him, I'm okay with it. I'm probably holding him just because I'm desperate at the quarterback position, and it's been so tough in the streets this year. But I'm okay with moving on from Russ if I need to. But Jen, a whiff on me, whiff on a couple of us here in IBT that we were all on him. We were all on all these Broncos.
Everybody was. I mean, who was it? Oh God, I'm blanking on his name right now, but he had had the Broncos all in as Super Bowl champs this year.
I did as well.
Nate Burleson.
Nate Burleson. Yep.
Nate, your husband did as well, and I did too. I had them at least going to the Super Bowl. Nate had Russ as his MVP. It's a disaster.
Dude, we were told this team was a quarterback away, and then we went out and we got Russell Wilson. But then we got apparently gas station Russell Wilson is what we actually got.
Yeah.
Dude, that's not fair. Russell Wilson's the only one doing anything on the team. That's not fair. I disagree that he is a gas station Russ. I'm not going to veer off course here, but it's not on Russ.
Jen? Do you think he can still get better once he gets healthy?
Yeah, when you see a team like this, what this tells me and what I am huge on is the locker room energy. And that's what I think has gone wrong. We saw it with Josh McDaniels. You guys keep talking. I gotta mute my.
All right. Well, I'm about good on the Broncos, honestly, Nate. You and I have been riffing on it for a couple weeks, so let's get off the Broncos here.
Thank you.
I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to go with my loser. Hoodwinked and bamboozled by the NFL bottom feeders. I think we all kind of bought into the Lions. I think we all bought into the Jaguars. And, guys, maybe it was a little presumptive. Christian Kirk had another disappointing day. Now he has 3 receptions for 71 in his last 2 games. Not ideal. James Robinson, same type of deal here. Less than 8 PPR points for James Robinson over the last 2 weeks. So very disappointing. I think the Jags still have some upside, but it's a little bit of a concern here moving forward. And then Jared Goff and the Lions just stunk it up. Couldn't get any points on the board. They had him on Ross St. Brown back. He was on a snap count, but he still only went 4 for 18. Jared Goff, then 19 for 35. Just awful day there in a matchup I kind of liked for him as well. So 4.86 fantasy points for Goff. This was a good story, and my advice comes down to wait for another big game and then maybe see if you can move off some of these Lions. I'll hold on to Amon-Ra St. Brown. Jared Goff, he can go back on the waiver wire. I think maybe we were a little too high on him. But yeah, guys, I think overall I'm almost like done with the Lion experience. I think maybe we just got a little too hyped up.
Yeah, like you said, it was a fun story. We talked about it earlier. Maybe people got kind of excited by Hard Knocks and the energy from this team. Amon-Ra's a guy you hold. I think everybody else, I think you're right, Seth. Like,
well, I want to have Swift. Like, I don't want anything to do with Swift the rest of the season. Too injury prone. If you have Jamal Williams, that's fine to hang on to him, but they're heading in their bye, so like I'm fine with shipping him if I can get something of value, especially the Swift manager if he's out there. Josh Reynolds, I'm okay with holding Josh Reynolds for another week or so. I'm okay with Jay Reynolds. Like that was a good call from you a couple weeks ago, Nate. So I'm okay with Josh Reynolds. But we do have Jameson Williams coming back. So I don't think it's like immediate hit eject and sell everyone, but I think it is. Let's look ourselves in the mirror. These are up and down players between them and the Jags. That's what we're going to get. They had a nice run though.
Well, it's something that I preach all draft season is be flexible. And this is one of those situations where you got these guys for relatively inexpensive. More than likely, if you drafted them, you were getting them late in drafts. If you picked them up on the waiver wire, it didn't cost you a ton of fab. You weren't using a high priority on it. And it's time when it's time to cut bait, it's time to cut bait. You can't get attached to these guys. And like you said, we're coming into a bye week. If you can get something for Jamal Williams, if you can get something for Josh Reynolds, if you can get something for TJ Hawkinson or Jared Goff, you should do it.
Yeah. Yep. I agree with you. Let's talk about some good stuff, though. Let's move on to the winners and losers. I'll start us off here. And, guys, it's pull out the whiskey. We getting frisky in NYC, baby. The New York Frisky Jets, man. I mean, putting up 40 on the fin, it was definitely – maybe it was a little bit of a romping at the end. But the Jets came out and played. No turnovers for young Zach Wilson. Breece Hall looked phenomenal. 197 total yards for Mr. Breece Hall. RB4 on the week. Just an awesome performance from him. Taken down to the 1 twice as well. So he even had an opportunity for even a bigger performance. 17 PPR points on the Michael Carter had 17 PPR points on the day. So the backfield kind of got it done in a tandem here. Breece Hall, RB7 on the year, guys. The Frisky Jets, I think, are here to stay. And this isn't one of those bottom feeders. I think they're actually legit here.
I want everyone to know Seth's Frisky Jets love is very real. And I know this today because, Seth, why don't you tell everybody what you purchased?
Yeah, recently I got into the Breece Hall jersey club. So it should be here in a couple weeks still. We still got some time left, but I'm excited to see what that brings. But here's the thing about Breece Hall and how it's going to really impact the fantasy guys is if you drafted him, we've been harping on it for a couple weeks, go out and buy him while he was down. He's taken over this backfield. Young running backs produce in the NFL. Young running backs produce. Every year other than 2019 over the last 6, we've had an RB1 come from the rookie class. And Breece Hall was that guy staring us in the face. And because he was on the Jets, we didn't want to admit it. Michael Carter is an occasional flex play too. We threw him out on Sure Thing Sleepers of the Week this week, Nate, and it paid off brilliantly. A little bit with some touchdown luck, but I think this Jets team, now they're running the ball a little more. So we're less excited about Garrett Wilson a little bit, less excited about Elijah Moore, Corey Davis, Conklin even, but more excited about these running backs. So I think it's going to go back and forth. I think Garrett Wilson will have some days. Maybe Conklin has – I still have some faith in Conklin, but – as far as Elijah Moore and Corey Davis, I'm not as excited about. But I think the Jets is just a team. Let's get behind them. Let's place some bets on them because there's always great odds on the Jets out there. We've been riding some of these bets here. We talk about it on the tailgate a lot. So bottom line, I love the Jets. Hell yeah. Let's get frisky, baby.
It feels weird to say too. Like
I know.
I love the Jets. Like
I love
barfing
them.
a
I love
little.
them. I mean, they got
it's just
like
crazy.
They got a MILF Hunter as their quarterback. They got a stud as their running back. They got Robert Saleh over on the sideline, just being an absolute dog. Like, this is a fun team to get behind. And if you can't get behind it, you're going to get left behind. So I'm going to follow the RB7 this year. I'm excited, guys. I hope you rejoice with me.
Oh, yeah, I will.
It was fun. Sunday's game was a fun one to watch for sure.
It was. And guys, Michael Carter is a guy they're going to consistently use at the goal line because he's proven that he's efficient. Well, Breece Hall will start to get some of that work too, but Michael Carter, it's not going to go away from Michael Carter.
Well, Breece has dominated inside the 10, but what they've been doing lately is they've been doing the two-back set. They've been doing the two-back set, and both those touchdowns with Carter, Breece was on the field. So a little bit of misdirection. I would expect maybe a little bit of a counterpunch to that, and maybe Breece gets a little more of the goal line work in those two-back sets because they've been giving it to Carter so much with all the attention going to Hall. But yeah, Carter's going to be involved here as well. But let's just rejoice in the happiness that they brought us this week. And if you can maybe go out and sell Carter a little bit high, I'm not opposed to it. But you got to ride Breece Hall here. You have to ride him because he is a league winner. And these frisky Jets, man, I think they're gonna be impressive down the stretch. I will say, when I statted them out and projected this team, I had them starting 3-2, and then they have a very tough schedule coming up. So just be mindful of that. They still have to face the Bills a couple times. They're going to get whacked from some of these better teams, but they could be a low-key playoff team, like 7-6 seed, maybe right on the outside of it. But I like the Jets, what they're doing here for fantasy. Nate, who's your winner?
So this week, my winner, Geno, more like Dreamo. Because Geno Smith, guys, this is so much fun. So much fun to watch. The guy's going off. He's 8 years into his career. I believe that's correct. He's been mostly a backup. He had a shot with the Jets as a starter. That was a terrible situation for him. He's completing 75% of his passes through 5 weeks, guys. It's insane. And while he's not going to probably keep up with that clip, an NFL record clip, he's going to be very good. He's got DK Metcalf. He's got Tyler Lockett.
Yeah.
He's been using Will Dissly a little bit. It sucks that Rashad Penny's gone, but Ken Walker is a serviceable, amazing fill-in. Probably going to maybe finishes an RB, low-end RB or high-end RB2. This offense is so much better than anyone thought it could possibly be. And I love it. I love it for Geno Smith. This is a guy that was very good in college at West Virginia. I don't think he got a fair shake when he came into the NFL. Now here we are. Could he make the Seahawks a playoff team?
He's in position to, and I think he should be in the conversation for NFL MVP. And I know that might sound a little overreaction Monday but I don't think it is, guys. Like Geno Smith, he's taking care of the ball. He's not getting in trouble, like Nate said, a 92 interception ratio right now. Lockett's been great for fantasy. DK's been great. I liked what we saw at Geno last year, and we saw this in a small sample size. People didn't want to buy into it. I bought into it. He was a guy I targeted in a lot of super flex leagues as my QB3, and in a lot of me, he's my QB2 now because he's performed that well. So I think we can continue to ride this for a while. Just be mindful. Their schedule does get a little bit trickier. They have some division games here coming up. Still got another one against the 49ers. They really struggled there. So keep that in mind. But yeah, I think right now you can start Geno Smith as a low-end quarterback one until further notice.
He was someone I wasn't excited about against New Orleans. I took his under on no house advantage. I think it was 260 yards passing, somewhere around there. And this is a defense that has locked down a lot of other offenses, and Geno Smith broke that. I don't know that I'm as worried about him in those matchups as you are.
Yeah. I mean, he might be matchup proof because this was a little bit of a tester for sure. I'm just saying let's keep expectations in check because I mean, last week we were high on Goff, and Goff's let us down. We were high on Mariota a couple weeks. So I do love Geno. I love this story. I think he's going to continue to be good. But we got to be mindful of this. Like, if people are out there really willing to pay up for these Seahawks wide receivers, I'm willing to part ways. Like, they've been great, but he's leveled out some of the up downs that we've seen with them from Russell Wilson. So, Jen, why don't you round us out here with your winner of Week 5?
So mine is Red Rover, send Josh Jacobs on over. I mean, this guy was unstoppable yesterday. He rushed for 154 yards, over 21 carries, and a touchdown. He finished the week with 32.3 fantasy points, and it just seems like he's in it to win it. He's still working on things. He's still the running back one there in that on that team, and I just think that the sky's the limit for him at this point in time. The Raiders have seen all of their divisional rivals, if you will, over the last 5 weeks. So I just think he's just onward and upward.
I'm 100% with you, and I think I was wrong on Josh Jacobs. I was kind of out on him coming into the season here, but he did face some pretty decent matchups the last couple of weeks. I mean, nothing crazy, but he has the Texans coming up this week, which is going to be another juicy one. After their bye, he faces the Texans. But I agree with Jen here. I think Josh Jacobs is going to be solid. I'd still try to sell him high if I can, I think, just because I think this is going to turn into a little more pass heavy of an offense. But I mean, I wasn't expecting Derek Carr to come out on Monday night and not have over 35 passing attempts, and he didn't. And it was shocking, Nate, but it seemed like their offense runs better when they can get Carr out on the bootleg, hit some deep shots off of Josh Jacobs' running ability.
Well, any good passing offense needs a running back like Josh Jacobs to be able to sell that play action that works so well for the Raiders. And I think McDaniels is smart enough that he's seen what Jacobs has done the last 2 weeks against Denver and against Kansas City. They beat Denver. They almost beat KC. And it was because they got Josh Jacobs the ball. I don't think this is going away. I'm not necessarily willing to even try and deal him. I think he's a guy that can be a consistent producer at running back the rest of the season in this offense.
Awesome. All right, guys, let's go ahead and move forward to our In the Scope segment, talk a little waivers.
I have the targets on my sights.
Requesting permission to engage.
In the Scope.
All right, guys, in the scope, we're going to tell you what's good here on the waivers. We're going to first talk mainstream targets, people who you should be considering picking up tonight on waivers. And then we're also going to talk our deeper in the scope targets. We feature them in the column each week over on the website. And these are the ones that you can pick up with really no fab spent. And we've been pretty good at this lately. So let's continue it here tonight. We already talked about Kenneth Walker. You need to empty the wallet on him if you need a running back play. 47.5% roster. I was surprised to see that number so low, but go pick him up if he's in one of those 50% of leagues for you. Jaylen Warren, he's still out there. Some concerns about Najee Harris, 3.9% rostered. And then Eno Benjamin, Nate, he's kind of interesting here. All the Cardinals running backs, they just got hurt this last week. So 6.8% rostered for Eno. So I think all those options are pretty good. Eno and Kenneth, the main ones if you need to play this week.
Well, I think Eno is going to. I mean, he had 14 PPR points last week. Phenomenal. We saw him used a little bit in the passing game, but he's had consistent usage. He's been right around 4 targets every week. So I think we're at a point now where we can be confident that he's going to get enough work to be rosterable.
Yeah, I think regardless of whether James Conner, because I don't think this is a super serious injury, maybe just a nick, a nick and a scrape here, but regardless, Eno Benjamin is kind of filling in a Chase Edmonds light role, and the offense is moving better when they have him in. Connor just hasn't been overly effective this year. So Eno Benjamin, if he's out there in, it looks like 90% of leagues, I'm willing to pay up. If someone wants to go grab Ken Walker, and Ken Walker will be the better player most likely in the season, don't be afraid to also throw some money out there. I think he's really interesting here. Looks like he's taken over kind of that Chase Edmonds light role. So keep them in mind. Quarterback here, again, Geno Smith, we just talked about him, but pick him up. He's still out there in about 70% of ESPN leagues as well. Isaiah McKenzie, only rostered in about 26.3% of leagues, Nate. He missed here. Khalil Shakur was in your column today that you talked about as well.
Well, McKenzie will be back. And when McKenzie is back, McKenzie is the wide receiver 3 in this offense behind Diggs and Davis. But as we've seen, there is more than enough targets to go around for a third receiver. If McKenzie's playing, I'm starting him where I've got him. Khalil Shakur is a great story. Love to see what we saw of him last week, but he's going to fall back once McKenzie's back in. He was out targeted by Isaiah Hodgins last week.
Shakir, yeah.
Yeah, but he got the touchdown.
Yeah.
So Isaiah McKenzie's a guy that 26.3% leads. Go get him. He's a great flex play.
Yeah, I want anything I can do with this Bills offense. They don't care if they're up 40 points. They're going to keep steamrolling you. So, yeah, like McKenzie there, if you need some more wide receiver help, what about Alec Pierce? He wasn't in the scope candidate for Scott in week 1, so you didn't need to spend any fab if you listen to Scott early in the season. He's only rostered in 8.6% of leagues right now, too. So, Alec Pierce, he should be rostered in all leagues. We talked about him last week, Nate. And then some tight ends that we've already talked about this season, but they're still out there on the waivers. Irv Smith, 32.1%. And then, Nate, last week you brilliantly called Hayden Hurst, 24.2% rostered. And he had a big serviceable week, especially for those who missed out on Kyle Pitts last week. I know people needed a last-minute pivot. Hayden Hurst was very valiant in the Bengals' effort there. So good call on you. And then, Jen, congratulations on your call in week 2. You pointed out Taysom Hill's usage in the run game and how he might have some touchdown prowess here, and he does. What do you think about that, Jen? Great to see Taysom Hill break out this week. 30 freaking fantasy points.
Dude, that was crazy. It was like almost exactly like what I was saying in week 2. He's everywhere. They're going to utilize him everywhere. They paid him to be an everywhere player. We've already talked about him tonight. Tight end, running back, wide receiver, whatever you need, he's there. He's a big body, and I think he's just going to continue to produce. I don't know why they don't use him more anyways. I mean, I know that we've got Alvin Kamara, but Taysom Hill, man.
The efficiency is off the charts. And like the one thing, if you are playing him at tight end, it is a little risky because he doesn't see a lot of snaps. But when he's on the field, he sees the ball. No reception, or I think he has 1 reception this season. So not crazy in the reception total, but he's getting the job done on the ground. So you can expect, I would say, somewhere between 5 and 10 carries a game, maybe every couple of games, throwing attempt like he had here. He also had a fumble recovery. Like, this guy is just a gamer. And I think after this performance, Jen, do you think he gets more involved? Like I think you're almost forced to give him the ball, especially now. No Chris Olave. Michael Thomas is kind of on the fritz. Jarvis Landry has been in and out of the lineup. Like, it's kind of been a mess everywhere, and Taysom Hill's been the one saving grace when active.
Yeah, and I mean, when you're talking about other guys like Traquan Smith, Quez Watkins, like you're gonna give it to the guy who you know. You're gonna give it to the guy who has produced. You're going to give it to the guy who you trust. I don't believe that next week's going to be his week, but look for him. Are they on bye week 7? They might be bye week 7, but he'll have one of those up and down kind of seasons where one week he's skyrocketing at that 30 points, and then the next week he's flatlined or 3 points. And then the next week he comes back and he's at this average of, 12, and then he'll kind of dwindle back down to the 7. So just keep an eye on his progress and like a repeat of past performance of up and down weeks. You're muted, Seth.
Nate, if you need a tight end, we talked about the landscape and how desolate it is right now. How much are you willing to pay for Taysom Hill?
Well, to Jen's point, this is going to be very much up and down. I mean, he's currently the tight end 7 in PPR. I'm probably not going to break the bank on Taysom Hill. I'm not that desperate at tight end in most places, but if I am. I mean, let's say $100 budget, I might spend $15 on him this week.
I'm going more than that. I'm going probably 30%.
Wow.
If you need The thing with Taysom Hill is, yes, he might have some up and down weeks, but he also has the potential to maybe be a league winner at the position, which you're not going to see again, I don't think, this season. We might have some in the scope candidates, Hayden Hurst of the world, who you can throw out in there that, they're going to be okay. They're going to have a little bit of a floor, but Taysom Hill has that pure upside we're looking for here. So yeah, I'm if you need a tight end and that's maybe you're a tight end away from winning your league, I don't mind it at all, Jen. I'm probably like maybe a little less than 30, but somewhere in that 20 range for sure. So love that call though. Hopefully you guys listened to Jen 3 weeks ago and you picked him up for free when he was free. Let's move forward though to our in the scope candidates. And these are the guys that we're suggesting after waivers run. So whenever you're listening to this podcast, you can pick them up probably for free. So go after it. And I'll start here with Daniel Jones. Not a sexy name. And I get the passing has been horrific the last couple weeks. He's also had barely any of his receiving targets out there. However, Daniel Jones has no less than 12 fantasy points in a game this season. And in most seasons, maybe that doesn't sound like a lot, but guys, it's 2022. Quarterback performances have been horrendous. You're left with single digits a lot of the time. And he has no passing TDs since week 2. So I'm expecting like some positive regression in the passing once he gets some of these guys, Kenny Golladay, Kadarius Toney, Wan'Dale Robinson back. I'm expecting a little bit positive in the passing game, but he's still getting it done on the ground. He is averaging 46 rushing yards per game on 8.2 attempts per game. 8.2 attempts is what Jalen Hurts was averaging last year, guys. Like this, he is up there right now in the rushing category with the quarterbacks. It's Lamar Jackson, it's Jalen Hurts, and then it is Daniel Jones. Like that is where we're at with this guy right now. Even on a bum ankle, he went out and kind of superheroed his way, ran around the field enough to get it done against the Packers over there in London. And he has the Ravens this week, a top 4 matchups for quarterbacks. So again, I'm expecting the passing to get a little bit better. I think it's going to start here against the Ravens. And then 2 weeks from now, another top 10 matchups against the Seahawks. So if you are scrambling for a quarterback and you are desperate, I think Daniel Jones, he's not a league winner. He's not a league winner, but he's a serviceable quarterback until his bye. So if you need a guy for the next 2 to 3 weeks, I'm riding Danny Dimes here, guys.
This is a really good call. Not one I thought I would agree with if you would have said you were going to make it in August, but here we are. The Giants are 4-1. This team, Brian Dabble has them heading in the right direction. Saquon Barkley has been ultra effective. That has helped Daniel Jones immensely. We saw some of the rushing upside last year too, so that shouldn't be too surprising. But, I mean, this is a guy that, over the next couple of weeks, if you heard at quarterback, he's a really good play.
Yeah, I mean, again, if you're desperate, he might have a little bit of upside for the next couple of weeks.
I'm a little more optimistic than Jen, but I understand. I understand. It hasn't been great. Jen, why don't you go ahead and take us with your in the scope target? Maybe you'll like him better than mine.
So I'm going with Joshua Kelly. He had 10 carries for 49 yards and a touchdown yesterday. We have a little bit of conflicting opinions on how good the Denver's defense is, but going up in a division game, I do feel like Joshua Kelly is going to have more play than we're expecting him to play, which is going to make his price probably skyrocket heading into week 7. So if you need a running back, even just a streamer for a couple of weeks, I would say Josh Kelly's right up there for you. I mean, the running back room is thin, to say the least, at this point in time, as far as availability goes. So you can get him for free this week. Go out, pick him up if you've got room. He's stash play. See how he does this week.
Especially if you have Eckler. Yeah, he should be.
Absolutely. If you have Eckler.
Josh Kelly, he looked awful in his first couple of seasons in the NFL. This year, he's actually looked really good in that change of pace role. And he's taken it. He's taken it out of the rookie's hand. He's taken it out of Sony Michel's hand. He's kind of earned that role there. So I think there is something behind this. I don't think he's necessarily a great, none of these plays that we tell you right now, they're not sexy starts, but they're players who can get you serviceable points. And Josh Kelly, he's going to have a couple looks at the red zone the rest of the season. The Broncos, I'm a little bit, I think they're a little bit better of a defense, but he has the Seahawks and the Falcons, which are definitely vulnerable on the ground at times. So I'm willing to pick up Josh Kelly if you have an end of bench spot and you need just more running back depth. Josh Kelly's a really good thought there. And Jen, eventually, like against the Broncos this week too, like you might be thinking the Chargers probably going to get out to lead. They got to crush some clock because Russ ain't throwing for 3 touchdowns this week.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Nate, take us away with your in the scope candidate here for heading into week 6.
All right, guys, this one's a little deep. This isn't someone you are going to want to play this week. You might not even want to play him next week. But week 8, week 9, week 10, as we get deeper into the season, this is a guy who's going to become more relevant in the New England offense, and it's Tyquan Thornton. 2nd-round pick out of Baylor. Bill Belichick really likes this kid. He was hurt to start the season, so he finally got his debut last week. 25 snaps, not a large sample size. He had 2 catches for 7 yards. What's important is that Bill Belichick in practice this week said he is progressing immensely every single day in practice. And this is a guy they want to get more involved in this offense. They want to see him more in the slot. He did 21 of his 25 snaps were out wide last week. They wanted to get him more in that slot role. He's behind 4 other guys in this offense. We know that. It's Nelson Aguilar, it's Kendrick Bourne, it's Jacoby Myers, it's Devontae Parker. However, Mac Jones is coming back in a couple of weeks. They developed a really solid rapport in training camp and in the preseason. This is a guy that Mac Jones can lean on, that he likes to throw the ball to. This is someone that could be a guy who's getting 5 to 7 targets a week by week 10, week 11. And as you're rolling into the playoffs, he might be a guy you're really, really glad you have on your bench as injuries continue to hammer your rosters.
Yeah, I think the thing about Thornton here is like there's an opportunity because outside of 1 game each, Aguilar and Parker haven't been impressive. Thornton did flash a little more in preseason. There's no vertical game really outside of 2 long passes this season for New England. We haven't seen the deep ball. I'm all right with this call. I don't know if I'm like rushing to pick him up right now just because I don't really think I want any New England pass catcher anywhere near my roster outside of Jacoby Myers. But I think in some deeper leagues, Tyquan Thornton could have some appeal, like you said, Nate, down the road.
That's what I do. I go deep.
All right, guys, let's round out the show here for one final time with weekly advice.
Weekly advice.
All right, guys. So weekly advice today. I just want to quickly touch on a little bit of a reflection time for us here at IBT. We recently hit 100 episodes on the podcast, and I know every show isn't super smooth. Some of them go better than others. Some of them we crush it. Other times we don't. As part of life, and that's something we talk about here at IBT. But really, what this podcast means to me, between all the good shows and the bad shows and everything in between, means everything to me. We come in here and if you're listening to this podcast regularly, you're not just looking for regular fantasy advice. You're also looking for that feel-good lifestyle advice. And when I first started this podcast, I was 19. I was in college. I would sit at my bar every week, Monday night, and record this and edit it myself. And so much has changed since then. And I've gained lifelong friends doing this podcast. And whether that's you guys, my co-host, our producer, or our audience members, we have some of the best audience members out there. So just really want to take some time and say thank you for this journey. Most podcasts, over 50% of podcasts don't get to episode 21. And here we are, a little over 100 now. And I'm just really thankful for this time, guys. And I'm thankful for Jen and Nate and Scott and everyone at IBT for coming along on this journey. But it's awesome. I'm very thankful for it. We have a long way to go, but I am very happy with where we are here as a company. And we're going to continue to get better each and every day, each and every rep.
Yeah. I mean, this is a milestone and it's one to be celebrated. I couldn't believe when Nate said it was 100. I thought no, it's got to be like 200. That
Yeah.
can't be right. But I remember my very first appearance on the show. I had written out notes in a notebook, and then I had torn all of the pages out, and I practiced like shuffling them silently on my lap. And it's
Yeah.
like everyone has come so far in knowledge, confidence, experience, friendship, family. I mean, it's just been something that I would have never even imagined doing. And I love 98% of it. There's a 2%, which kind of sucks sometimes. The cat's rubbing up against my computer or meowing straight into my microphone, or, I had to leave something early today to go get the kid, but it's all life. It's all life. And we get through it together, and we all understand. And it's an awesome thing to be a part of. And thank you, Seth, for having us and welcoming us into your family and giving us this amazing experience and opportunity.
Appreciate that, Jen. Thank you.
Seth, I want to share a memory. It is the memory of the very first time we ever tried to go live. I want to see if you remember this. It was a Sunday morning.
Yeah.
It was you, me, Thomas Kuda, and Elliot Hicks. I had spent like 4 days downloading all of these like plugins and software and like virtual speakers and setting up all this stuff in OBS Studio and trying to do all of these things. And we sat and we did 45 minutes of start sit live on Twitter.
Yeah.
With no audio.
Yeah.
Because I screwed up the plugins. And at the end of it, Jen's like, honey, I don't think you guys had audio. And that was
I thought it was just me. I was like, I'm doing something wrong, obviously, because everyone else, they're rolling with it. They keep going. So it's just me, but I'm watching. I'm here.
Seth, the fact that we've gotten to 100 episodes, I've been a part of roughly 80 of them, I think, is what we figured out. 70, somewhere around in that neighborhood. The fact that I did one still to this day blows my mind. The fact that we do this twice a week is about the coolest freaking thing I could imagine. 12-year-old me would be so damn proud of what I'm doing right now. And 40-year-old me is very proud of what we have built with this company and the content that we put out every day and the way that we carry ourselves with people. I am so proud to be a part of this, Seth. Couldn't be more thankful to be here. We have 300 YouTube subscribers. I didn't think a single face would ever see me on YouTube, because unless I did something really insanely stupid and ended up in jail for it, then maybe there'd be a viral video. I don't know.
Well, guys, I appreciate you guys coming along with this journey, and I appreciate our in-between family out there that, each and every week they tune in, whether it's Tuesday nights, whether it's Friday nights. A lot goes into the preparation of this show. A lot goes into everything we do here at In Between Media. And right now we're in the very early stages of a startup, and we don't always see the reward and the profit right away, but we see the vision and we see us helping people. And that's like the main thing, I think, what we want to do here at In Between Media. And that's what we're going to continue to do, really, really throughout the rest of the season. So just want to say thank you to everyone here in the audience tonight, everyone who tunes in each and every week. If there is something we can do better, whether that's more of a certain type of content, less of a certain type of content, ways we can improve this podcast, other shows, please let us know. We want to continue to help serve those people who call us their home for a couple hours each week. So that's what we're going to do there. Before we head out, guys, we do have a couple questions here from our guy, Lucius. So let's go ahead and hit those really quickly, and then we'll get forward here with the evening all. Wondering about Green Bay versus Pats defense this week. Great content as usual. Man, oh man.
I mean, yeah, going into it initially, you'd be like, yeah, Green Bay is going to pull it out, but then they lost last week in London. So
Green Bay plays the Jets, though.
Yeah, that's what I actually was just about to say.
Oh, Green Bay or the Pats defense.
Okay, thank you. I was very confused.
I don't know, actually.
I don't think I want to face the Jets. I don't think I want to face the Jets. For that, yeah, I think I'm probably staying away from Green Bay. If you want to roll out the Patriots against the Browns, be my guest. I'm more confident in that. They're getting a couple interceptions per game. I just got to stay. I can't play, obviously, anyone against my frisky Jets. So no way I'm rolling out Green Bay this week. Defense just hasn't been out there. I think there's better options than both these teams out there, I think, though.
Yep.
Also, he's asking about a trade request. Debo and J.K. Dobbins for Hollywood and Miles Sanders, half-point PPR. He's on the Hollywood side. I don't know whether that means he has Hollywood or is going to get him. But I'm keeping Debo Samuel and J.K. Dobbins. Debo's the best player in that trade. I don't ever want to trade the best player. If you can get Debo for that, I would absolutely do that, especially with Hollywood Brown. He's going to lose some value here with Hopkins coming back as well.
Yep, I'm right there with you, Seth.
Same.
Awesome. Well, guys, thank you again one more time for everyone tuning in tonight. Thank you to everyone who makes this podcast and this company run. Our audio editor, Kyle, in the back end each and every Tuesday night. We appreciate him chopping us up, making us sound good on the audio version. And then our guy, Nate Miller, who makes all the drops here, makes all the music for us here at In Between Media. We could not do this without him as well. So check out his music at Ism on all streaming platforms, Apple Music, Spotify, whatever that is. We're a little bit over time tonight, guys, but it was a great conversation and excited to see you later in the week, Nate. Everyone, until then, keep it in between. Good luck on waivers. Your destination for both some feel-good lifestyle advice and some fantasy football advice.